Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have two conversations that I think just want some little bit of clarification. One of which is continuing a conversation we had in Alaska when I had gotten the hot seat. And the initial question was the idea of, can energy be stored in our bodies? And it was coming from the idea of people saying,
No.
Exactly.
Next question.
So if we relate that to the mind-body connection, everything is just always going back to your thought patterns.
Is the song stored in your radio? Oh, I hope that song's still there.
You made it active.
Hope the song's still there. I had to run into this grocery store and the song was playing, and I hope it's still there when I get back. In other words, there's a transmission and a receiving, and nothing's stored. Nothing is stored. There are patterns of receptions, and that's what you call memory.
And as long as you keep those active, then that's what's going to manifest.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You remember. It's so interesting. Did you ever get together with somebody who grew up with you, who remembered your childhood entirely differently than you did? And 10 years ago, they remembered it more like you did, but then they married someone who was more positive in nature, and now their past has changed for them, and yours didn't. We're not kidding. Remember that time? No. Remember how mad you were? No. Remember that time you were so drunk? No.
That's perfect. I feel complete with that. The second part, let's have a little fun with this. As I've been creating more in my life and being so deliberate, there's this funny paradox that I felt that they both seem to lead to the same place. On one hand, you've said, really, if you just focused on feeling good your whole life, and that was your only MO, you would live happily ever after.
We've never said that, because you've got plenty of step ones. Step one is what does the creating. Step two is the conspiracy. Step three is what you just said. So you don't spend your whole life doing that. You just do enough of it, and you do it intelligently and deliberately and intentionally. In other words, sometimes you ask and sometimes you listen.
So when you're in a moment when, I guess what I was getting at with staying general, because there's a lack of resistance there, and sometimes you're just like, I want to feel good today, and all these delicious experiences come. You've launched that, the step ones have happened. And on the other hand, there are many moments where, oh, the deliciousness of having a specific thought that you're wanting, giving it the airtime and building momentum.
And all we're asking, and we started out with this today, is that you, during a focused moment, when you're asking for that awareness, just first acknowledge, under what influence am I right now? And if you're under the influence of source, then let it rip. If you're under the influence of something else, take a nap.
So with this idea of momentum, if you're aligned with something and you have a goal, and every time you're thinking of the goal, it feels good, I already know in a way, I expect that that will manifest because I'm aligned with it. But what's this idea then of wanting to build momentum if it helps either with timing or the priming of something?
First of all, momentum happens no matter what influence you're under. Momentum is a natural product of the law of attraction. When you hold a thought consistently, you're going to like this. So let's take a subject like prosperity, money. Let's say that you would like more money, but you don't have enough. Now, in this simple analogy that we just offered, there's not much momentum for or against money, because you want money and you don't believe it. So nothing's changing. There's no momentum. But let's say that you're segment intending and you feel prosperous and you love this prosperous world and you love seeing beautiful things, and now momentum is gathering. Or let's say you've got more bills than you do money and you're worried about it. Now more momentum is gathering. So many people do some of this and some of this and some of this and some of this. So they gather momentum on both that way and that way, which puts a tremendous tug of war sensation within you. So we just want you to ask yourself, under what influence are you as you're thinking those thoughts? That's how you get out ahead of it. If you wait until you go to the mailbox and there's a big pile of bills and you don't have the money for it, and you're sitting in that moment, the momentum is already underway and you're not going to have pleasure in that moment. We would like you to distract yourself in some way, because we want you to practice the pleasure of non-resistant thought, not the, let's find the right word, not the human tendency or obsession with facing reality, whatever it is. Because there are those that would say, if you take pleasure from non-resistant thought and you don't focus on the bills that you have to pay, then you're irresponsible. And we say only momentarily, because the money can't come if that's the vibration that you keep going dominantly. So let's say that you're worried about money. Could be anything. You're worried about it, really worried about it. But then maybe someone else influences the thought because you're at dinner and that's what they're talking about. Maybe you've been in meditation, so the scale is tipped. Doesn't matter how it came about. But then you think things are getting better. Well, your things are getting better thought, if you mean it, actually is resistance to the momentum of things getting worse. So it was on its way to getting worse, and you just slowed it down with this thought that is different. Feel that? Or you could be feeling really prosperous and then worry about something, and you could slow down that momentum. Momentum is going to happen. Now, that's something we haven't discussed before in that pointed way. Did you get it? Law of attraction is responding to the active vibration, and therefore momentum is underway. But you have a choice about what thoughts you think, but it's hard to exercise that choice because of the momentum. In other words, if you've really got a positive roll going, it's hard for you to think negatively. If you've got a really negative roll going, it's hard for you to think positively. That's just the facts of the way the law of attraction works. So as you care more, as you get out ahead of it, and you get that positive momentum going before you're thinking any thoughts, now you have a much greater probability of getting the positive momentum going than if you're trying to overcome the negative momentum. We have interacted with so many of you, and we are at the place where we are no longer really interested in talking to you when you're in a negative place trying to turn it around, because it's so slow going, it hardly ever happens, it's annoying to everyone who's listening in. We just want to say to you, give it a rest. Stop talking about it and get out ahead of it. And there's two ways to get out ahead of it: meditate and hook in and watch the movie if there is one, and segment and tend from a place of feeling good. And you'll notice big time the awesome power of non-resistant thought.
So then in that situation, if you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and you're starting general, and obviously going specific feels good, would there be any more benefit to either go more specific on the, let's say your finances, you're feeling good. So would there be any more benefit saying, now that I'm tuned into my finances, give it that more specificity? Or
you've just asked the favorite question that we've ever heard, because we're right out here on the leading edge. This is really, really a good question. And the answer is, if it's pleasurable, do it for the pleasure. If it feels good to get more detailed about it, feels good to add your insight and more details, then do it. Do it for the pleasure, not for the power. So when you said, would it be better? What'd you mean? Did you mean, would it be better for my pleasure, or would it be better for my power? Because if you're doing it for the pleasure, it's better. If you're doing it for the power, it'll bite you.
that was it. It's for the pleasure. And allowing both options to be viable.
And when you think about it, isn't that how it goes? When you get on a roll like that, don't you want to think about it? Don't you want to talk about it? This is co-creation at its best. Yeah.
I'm so satisfied with that. Thank you.
Yeah. Really good. Really good.